Welcome back to Copper Star Precision, and today we're talking about super smooth and slick bolts and actions for the Ruger Precision Budget Build, and I mean, smooth as glass. So that's what we're going to talk about. Now, of course, YouTube, and I know I've mentioned this in a lot of videos on this series, but YouTube's not a fan of showing anything cool with firearms and Second Amendment stuff, so I would just remind you, appreciate the likes on the videos, the comments on the videos. Been getting a lot of comments. I read them all. I try to respond to most of them. I've been getting a lot of personal emails from people asking about this build and how to get started in precision rifle, which is exactly my point with this series of videos, a budget build, get people interested in the sport. I think it's great. But today we're going to talk about all of the things I did to the action. Now, full disclaimer, I have no idea if this like voids your warranty with Ruger or anything like that. And you don't have to do this. The actions are pretty stiff from the factory. It kind of, again, depends on luck of the draw of what rifle you get. And it will, break in over time. So if you just bought your rifle and you're like, oh man, this action sucks. Well, it's not a custom action like a Voodoo or Rimex or anything like that. It's not a CZ. CZs tend to be pretty slick, but even they need a little bit of work and break-in period. So if you're completely unsatisfied with the feeling of the action, it's not really going to gain you anything in terms of accuracy to smooth it up. It just kind of makes the sort of user experience a little bit better. And, it feels better. And I don't know, maybe that helps you in a placebo effect kind of way, build confidence, but it's nice and smooth and, virtually frictionless. Obviously you have to push the round out of the magazine into the chamber. So there's that friction there. You have to cam over the bolt. There's that friction there, but just the act of, being really smooth back and forth. If this is something you want to do, I'm not responsible for anything you do to your firearm, but I will show you in a way how to do this. I can't show you directly because it could risk a channel strike and all this stuff, the politics of YouTube. But I will try and describe the process as best I can in this video and show you kind of the before and after. And if you have any questions about it, I can answer them in the comments. My email's down there. If you have any personal questions about this rifle, feel free to email me. I'm usually pretty good about responding. But we will need a couple of things, and this is a budget build, so we're going to try and do it on the cheap, and you might have some of the stuff already, but it's going to be made a lot easier if you kind of have these things. So first, you want to get some good like penetrating oil. Croil is usually the one of choice for gunsmiths and that kind of stuff. There's a lot of good uses for this, so it's not like a one-time purchase just for this. It's it loosens metal parts. It's kind of like a penetrating fluid like PB Blaster, but Croil is the way to go. And then pretty much sold exclusively through Brownells is going to be JB. This is a can of Bore Bright. I obviously haven't ordered it. This is less abrasive than Bore Paste. Bore Paste is what I used. If you want to go even finer, which I don't think you need to, you can get Bore Bright. But both of these are available through Brownells or, your local, probably, Cabela's or Bass Pro probably has it on the shelf. And what else do we need? We need a shotgun cleaning kit. I'll link to one in the description. Just buy the cheapest one you can because you're pretty much going to not be able to use it for shotgun cleaning after this. It's just going to make the process of polishing the action that much faster. And lastly, we can just get some cheap sort of sharpening stones. So I'll put a link for these. I got these on Amazon. They're very cheap, but they're different stones of different grits. So we got 180, 400, and 800 grit. They come in a pack that go up to like 3,000 grit, which is kind of overkill. But yeah, so we need penetrating oil, Bore Paste, which is an abrasive compound, and maybe some stones and a shotgun cleaning kit. So let's head over to the table. And before we do, don't forget to like this video, comment, and subscribe, and show you exactly what I did. So this video will be about the action. I'll have another video probably the next day about the bolt, which uses a slightly different technique. But if you're in search of that really smooth buttery action that you typically only get when you pay thousands of dollars for a custom action, this is one way to do it. Again, not responsible for any damage you do to your firearm or any voided warranties or anything like that. I do recommend you put, a lot of rounds to the rifle first. Before I did this, I probably had 2,000 to 3,000 rounds through the rifle and wasn't happy with the way the bolt felt, kind of gritty. So I decided to do this. So, go shoot your gun. This is totally unnecessary. Have fun with it. But if you are looking for information on how to slick up the action, that's what this video is about. Back with the Ruger, here's the action, bare action. I've removed pretty much everything you can remove from here, including the bolt release. And let's just take a look if we can kind of see here all this wear in here and what that is telling us about the condition of our action and our bolts. So if we look at, there's a distinct line in here, and then there's a whole lot of wear on this side, which means that when this bolt interacts with this action, we can see that that line in there is caused by this edge of the bolt. And then all this wear here is kind of due to a few things. One is scraping against that edge, as well as when we close the bolt, there's some friction here. So this will break in with time. There are quite a few rounds on this rifle, but if you want to make the action as slick as possible, you could, just use the rifle a lot, put a lot of rounds down range, and it's kind of go in. But this deep line here, you can almost not quite feel it, but we're going to polish this up, and I'm going to discuss how we do that in just a second. And then we're going to turn our attention to the bolt itself, and there's a couple of spots here that are very sharp. So we might just take a little bit of a stone onto some of these edges here, and then we're going to polish this whole bolt. You can see all the machining marks and that kind of stuff. So granted, this is, a very cheap rifle in terms of things. So if you're expecting super high quality, you're probably looking at the wrong kind of thing for a factory mass-produced rifle at this price point. But we can go in here and we can really slick this up. So we're going to polish this entire surface. We're going to take this whole thing apart, polish the surface. We're going to knock down some of these very, very sharp corners here, just to really smooth up the action. And again, this will smooth up over time, but even after having shot so many rounds with this rifle, I still feel like it could be quite a bit smoother in here. And if we look at sort of the back of the bolt here, we can see all this wear, and that's coming from these sharp edges here, and there's a very sharp edge over here on the back of the action. So we can just take a little stone to that, kind of smooth that out, just make sure we're getting, make sure there's no unwanted friction or anything like that when we're closing the bolt, making the action as smooth as possible. So let's discuss how we can do that. All right, so we're back with the action after my little experiment in trying to get this all smooth, and I hope you can see the difference there. I mean, that is just super smooth. We haven't even touched the bolt yet, and this thing is just, there's almost no friction there. We're going to polish the bolt to match, but that is looking very good. Now, YouTube frowns on showing anything that is a modification to a firearm. We're not really modifying anything, we're just polishing metal, but to avoid the YouTube overlords, I am going to describe the process. I will not show it to you. So basically what this is we're just polishing all the internal surfaces in here, and the best way I have found to do that is the following. We're going to use a combination of Kroil and JB Bore Paste cleaning compound. So there's Bore Bright, and then there's JB Bore Paste. This is the paste. It's slightly more abrasive. You can also get, if you want to go for a second round, you can go Bore Bright, but I think this is plenty smooth enough, and we don't want it like mirror smooth, because then it's actually going to create more friction if both surfaces are like completely smooth and sticking up against each other. So we want not the smoothest in the world, but definitely smoother than what we had, and then with a light coat of oil in here, we're going to be golden. So we take Kroil JB Bore Paste. What we're going to do is you get basically a shotgun cleaning kit. So this is a bore mop for a 12 gauge shotgun. And what you do is you dip this in Kroil, saturate this with Kroil, and then you take your JB Bore compound, which is just like an abrasive paste. Wear some gloves, put that on your finger, and really work that into here. Then you will need, most likely, your shotgun cleaning kit if you buy one. I'll put a link to one down in the comments, but it'll come with this little adapter. So this will thread on to here, and then this adapter allows it to thread onto a normal cleaning rod. So if you have like a multi-piece cleaning rod kit, you just take one of those pieces, put it up in a drill, put this on here, and with a slow speed, we just run this up and down. And basically what we're trying to do is evenly spread a thin layer of this abrasive compound throughout. Then, when you're satisfied with that it's thoroughly, you know, there's a lot of JB bore paste and Croil in there, then we take our same cleaning kit for 12 gauge. This is a bronze bristle brush. And this is where you go, you just put this on here, if it will go in. And we just go to town. So we're going to move that up and back. You probably want to stop short of the locating pin in here. There's no reason to mess with that. But we're just going to go back and forth, and we're basically using the abrasive quality of that plus the bronze brush, and we're just making everything as smooth as possible. Now, it is going to make a bit of a mess, so do it in a well-ventilated area that you don't mind little things flying everywhere. The faster you go, the more it's going to spread out. But got a little piece of paper towel stuck in there from drying it off. But after you're done, you want to make sure that you obviously don't have any of the bedding compound, which will, at this point will become like a slurry. It will be all in these little nooks and crannies and crevices and that kind of stuff. So take it out. I washed it, sprayed it down with a bunch of water, and we don't want this to rust. So immediately after, I did a quick dry and then cleaned it with alcohol so that it would clean and evaporate very quickly. And then we're going to put a protective layer of your favorite sort of lubricant, protectant. I use Ballistol, so put Ballistol in there, and it's a nice, leaves a small, very fine film, and it's going to protect that metal from rusting now that we've kind of exposed a bunch of it. But it is just super slick, and again, we haven't even touched the bolt, and it's just, I mean, this thing just glides on there. Also, before I went to town on the inside here, I was talking about some of these ridges here, and then just took a small stone to anywhere where I felt like it was catching, and again, using my bolt as evidence of these wear marks where there was friction being applied to different parts of the shroud here, as well as inside the bolt. But I knew I was going to polish the entire inside, so that took care of that. But as far as the markings on the shroud here, there were definitely some very, very sharp edges in this part of the action. This corner here was like you could cut yourself on it, and then up this way as well, and a couple of small spots in here. Whatever you do, do not alter this dimension here where the actual bolt handle resides, because that is what is indexing your headspace. So we don't want to touch anything in that location. You might even want to put a small piece of tape over it just to make sure you're not interfering with that. You want this to be clean, but you don't want to change the dimensions on this at all, because that is what is indexing off of that bolt handle to give you your headspace. But super happy with the way this turned out. Nice and buttery smooth. Now we're going to have to reinstall the, as you noticed, I've obviously taken the rail off so that there's nothing going on with these screws. Make sure those screws are clear of any bedding, cleaning compound. And then I also took off the bolt release, which is simple 3 parts. I'll just show them to you just in case you're curious. So there's the actual bolt release itself. There is a roll pin, and there is a small spring. So don't lose these parts. And there's a small hole for the spring right here. So the spring is going to go on like this, and we're just going to set this down like so. And as you can see, it falls into place and has that action here, and we're just going to have to line these holes up, and we're going to have to push this roll pin back through to get this reinstalled. So I'm going to get that started, and then I'm going to get a punch, and I'm just going to punch that back through and make sure that that is working as intended. But now we have our action completely polished. We can now take the rail, put that back on, and this time I will be Loctiting the screws with blue Loctite, making sure that those are torque to spec. I'll have to look up the torque specs on those. But now we can start reassembling this, and then we will turn our attention to polishing the bolt. Well, I hope that was informative. Like I said, next video will be about little modifications we can make to the bolt. Also, just bolt disassembly for those people who want to know how to take their bolt apart. And yeah, I mean, the results speak for themselves. I will say that you have to be a little bit more diligent about your maintenance. I like to clean my rifles after every match, and you will definitely want to at least lubricate that area that we exposed to kind of bare metal. Otherwise, you're going to risk, rust or anything like that. So, in order to keep the action running smooth, it takes a little bit more maintenance. So, before you go out and do this, factor that into account. If you're someone who just likes to put your rifles away, run them hot and put them away wet, then this probably isn't for you. But if you're looking for sort of that utmost smoothness and consistency in your bolt manipulation, you might want to give this a try. Questions or comments, as always, leave them down below. While you're down there, don't forget to like this video, comment, and subscribe. I'll have a list in the description of this video and probably a pinned comment of the things I used. And yeah, until I see you in the next one, as always, score more points.